Hi everyone, and thanks so much for joining me. During this lesson, we're going to be focusing on China's current 5-year plan, which is taking place over the period from 2016 through to 2020. Now, this has been decreed by the Communist Party, and the 5-year plan itself represents a social and economic development plan for the Chinese economy. Now, the aspects that we'll see on this plan deliberately focus on challenging some of the negative externalities that China is experiencing as a result of their rampant economic growth, together with the fact that it represents that China faces other challenges, such as the middle income trap that we've mentioned previously. So let's take a look at how these policies break down. So really, there's 5 identifiable areas that the Chinese are focusing on within this. The first point is a really important one when it comes to avoiding the middle income trap, and it represents the movement away from old heavy industry, particularly when it comes to say primary extraction and the low profit margins that tend to be made in such an industry. In contrast, it represents moving up the value added chain, not just manufacturing, but manufacturing high-end goods that can be sold to the most sophisticated consumers in the world. So that means Western markets ultimately. So this is China's grand ambition there with this innovation, to move away from old heavy industries and outdated manufacturing, where China no longer possesses a comparative advantage, towards areas which are more creative and more information intensive. So such areas obviously may include the use of technology, but it could also be incorporated when it comes to artificial intelligence and marketing and those creative industries really, which help to generate far more value added. Okay, so that's the first point. Our second point is trying to balance the process of economic growth out and allowing more people to actually benefit from this process. So the balancing that is underway, well, right now the amount of infrastructure spending that is taking place, capital investment that is taking place, is actually far larger in China's interior as opposed to on the seaboard. Now that is obviously part of a regionalised development plan, but at the same time, China does realise that the far western states and far northern states are really going to struggle to develop as rapidly as other parts of China. They're landlocked, and that does pose a significant barrier. One of the ways that they will hope to get around that is by the building of the one bridge, one road philosophy, and that $1 trillion of infrastructure development which is underway. That will help to actually provide greater access to those western and northern regions, okay, as well as the rest of China's interior more generally. Next point is about greening. Now, this is really about sustainability and promoting the sustainability of China's growth so that it is not accompanied by all of the negative externalities such as pollution and congestion and so on that we've previously discussed. So it's about a better quality of growth and not just about quantity. Now, China is also really trying to focus in on this area as a particular area that they may be able to develop a real advantage in because of the scale of their country. Now, if they can, then that means the development of green energy and green technologies may be something that China in the future would be able to sell across the Western world. And obviously this green development and the desire of the Chinese to not just see sustainability and green development as a cost, but as a potential business opportunity, links back to our point about innovation to start with there. Okay, so the next one is about China opening up abroad and really just expanding beyond its own boundaries, its sphere of influence, and its partnerships that China enjoys. So that may be free trade agreements, but of course the most notable area in terms of the opening up is the Bridge and Road Initiative, or One Bridge, One Road. And that process is really going to enable China to increase its trade quite substantially with the 60 different countries which are actually part of that infrastructure development. So it means generating and developing far better partnerships with each of those countries, and it's really about cooperation and trust in trade. Of course, some people in the West are a little bit concerned about China's expansion plans for this One Bridge, One Road. So, for instance, Theresa May has recently chosen not to actually, say how wonderful this project actually is, much to the Chinese people's dislike. She has decided to not get behind it because she is worried about what it actually means for China in terms of their global power. Okay, our next point here is really just about trying to share the benefits of economic growth more equally. So it's about inclusive development and enabling everyone to live under this philosophy where everyone can be seen as an entrepreneur. So that's very much one aspect of this. So encouraging entrepreneurial flair in an economy which isn't necessarily known for its creativity. Again, this will help to fulfill some of the ambitions of this, and if it can reduce the barriers to entry for new entrepreneurs and new startups, then that may help to foster greater innovation in the future. There's also the Made in China 2025 ambition, which is highlighted within this. Now, what this really identifies is that Chinese goods are often perceived in the West as being of inferior quality. Now, sometimes that's obviously the case, and other times, there's many Chinese companies which are actually doing very well overseas. Take, for instance, OnePlus, who now sell their phones quite widely in the UK market, for instance. Of course, you've also got other examples such as Huawei and Xiaomi phones. You may not have heard of those, and I understand. But nevertheless, China is just aware that they need to really heighten their ambitions to make sure that in the West we perceive their goods to be of a higher value than we previously have done with the sort of Made in China tag that we're so used to seeing. One of the ways that they also hope to do this is to actually improve the actual university and research links to commercial-based projects, so to make better use of the research that's being done academically to improve the products that they can offer overseas. Okay, so that is our 5-year plan. That's it in a nutshell. I hope that was useful for you. Thanks ever so much.